you were mostly focused on black
So the
card.
Environmental Protection Agency, EPA for short, actually did some of their own soil testing in the Pilsen area. And this is an aerial image of the area where they did some of that testing. One of the areas where they did testing was the Lozano site, which is located at 947th West Coltrane Street. And one thing to keep in mind is in the city of Chicago, the standard for lead or pollution in the soil is 400 parts per million. That is the residential level. And as far as the industrial level, it's 800 parts per million. But at the Lozano site, the EPA actually found an outstanding 23,000 parts per million. We're continuing the challenge, contamination along the rail tracks. This is an image of the BNSF railroad tracks. They go all around the Pilsen area, and they are highly polluted with lead. This is an image of the BNSF tracks along the Lozano site. This is the EPA's data results when they did their field testing. And when they were doing their testing, they were doing it by the industrial level of parts per million that is allowed. So their criteria was 800. And out of all the results, none of the results actually matched the criteria of 800 parts per million. Parts per million. If anything, the closest result that came close to the criteria was a result of 840. That's still 40 parts per million over the industrial level. When we did our field testing at the BNSF tracks by the Lozano site, we found 529 parts per million of lead, which is lower than the industrial level, but higher than the residential level. Although this is an industrial level, one thing to keep in mind is that recently there was a new community garden set up in the area, and if people are going to be in and around the railroad tracks because of the community garden, then they are going to be exposed to some lead levels.
39% of the Latino population lives within 30 miles of a polluting power plant. And then this right here were actually pictures that we took when we went out to test the air. We were walking down Blue Island, and then this is right here a power plant, and these are 2 trucks full of garbage going to a site where we went. This right here is the site where we went to, and we were trying to collect an air sample from there, and they actually kicked us out. They told us to leave, that we couldn't leave.
7 out of 10 Latinos, which is 71%, live in countries that violate federal air pollution.
And then this right here is just another picture of how low income connects to having higher lead levels in your blood or living in a polluted community.
My name is Heriberto Leon, and I am Community Involvement Coordinator for the Environmental Protection Agency, and I am here attending the PERRO Community Forum to provide some information to the community about lead contamination concerns in the neighborhood. I'm here with my colleague Mark Johnson from the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, or ATSDR for short.
So, as Jerry mentioned, PERRO has actually been engaged with the EPA for a while, even from before I was brought into the picture, because of issues related to the emissions coming from H. Kramer and other concerns going on environmentally in the community. And they had also been working with the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization as well. And there was a big meeting that was back in, was it August 2012 or around almost 2 years ago, with the regional administrator, Susan Hedman, of the Region 5 Environmental Protection Agency office here in Chicago. And at that point, they brought up many other concerns going on, both in Pilsen and in Little Village. And at that point, I was brought in to assist with the community relations aspect of the work. What the organization PERRO brought to our attention, which is the emissions of H. Kramer. H. Kramer is located right here. There's an alley right behind it. Surmac is to the south of that, PERRO is immediately west. Bettis Elementary School is a little bit north of that, and then you've got the parks nearby for and through. And before my involvement so much, before 2012, there was already engagement with the Illinois EPA, I understand, they're the ones who set up the monitoring stations on the schools, both Perez and Benito Juárez, to begin to collect some data about the emissions coming from H. Kramer. El mapa representa el área de preocupación que se estudió alrededor de la planta de H. Kramer antes de que se involucrara la Agencia de Protección Ambiental. Había un monitoreo del aire de los monitores que se establecieron en la escuela Pérez y la escuela de Benito Juárez. Y el área alrededor de H. Kramer fue donde se enfocó el estudio de muestreo que se hizo, que lo hizo Mendoza, el coordinador de la Agencia de Protección Ambiental. Pero nos comunicó sus preocupaciones, lo mismo que ya le traduje. Some of the smelters in the area, National Lead Company to the northeast, Lowenthal Metals on Cullerton and Sangamon Strip to the west, H. Kramer of course over here, and then Century Smelting, which we believe closed around the 1980s or so. National Lead closed, we think, around the 1960s, and Lowenthal Metals, I think their big fire was like in the 1940s. So they have been out of commission, but H. Kramer is still functioning.
For instance, we found in December 2012 when we did some sampling of the soil in the alley behind H. Kramer, relatively high levels of lead, over 2,000 parts per million, I believe is the measure. And we, as a consequence, decided to do some additional sampling in the year 2013 in the neighborhood. We obtained some permissions from owners around the H. Kramer area. We also did some sampling outside of the area to compare as background information. And we found some areas that were of concern, some residences that had high levels of lead in their soil. We've communicated the results to the owners that led us into their property, and now we are doing just general community outreach along with PERRO to continue the education piece in the neighborhood of how people can be protective of their health from the sources of lead that they may have in their yards, front yards, backyards.
Yes, that's why you do not want to grow edibles in lead soil, because it will absorb into the plants. In fact, some places they talk about bioremediation, which is a way to try to clean it up, is to use the plants to soak up the lead. But you don't want to be consuming those plants for sure. Chicago, in a residential area, so if this is coming from your home, from your backyard, from your garden, whatever, it should be below 400 ppm. That's the number you're looking for. If it's below 400 ppm, as far as the city's concerned, you're okay. If it's over 400 ppm, then you have a concern and you really should try to figure out how to address it. Now, that said, there's no such thing as a safe level of lead. So even if your level of lead is 200 or 300 ppm, what that means is, okay, you're not in a real severe situation, but I would not be recommending growing food that you're going to consume in that soil, right? And pretty much in this neighborhood, if you're going to be growing food to consume, you should be growing it in raised beds where you have fresh, clean soil that you put in yourself. There are handouts the EPA has brought which will tell you all this information about how to keep yourself safe. I definitely recommend you take that home with you, even if it's like 10 ppm in your soil sample. Take this stuff home with you and use what they tell you to keep yourself safe, right?